2 weeks ago, I told you about the Coldcard incident. Since then, the story has grown. Galaxy Digital now says with high confidence that at least some of the attackers used AI models without safety restrictions to find and exploit the flaw. And days earlier, Boltz, one of the most used non-custodial swap services in the Bitcoin ecosystem, shut down indefinitely because of AI-driven attacks were iterating faster than the team could patch. Meanwhile, on the other side of the picture, AI is doing something completely different to money itself. This is the Bitcoin Weekly by Blockrise, week 34. Here is what is actually happening. The Coldcard incident had nothing to do with Bitcoin itself. A 2021 firmware rewrite had quietly replaced the device's hardware random number generator with a software fallback. On affected devices, the effective randomness of generated seeds fell from 128 bits to around 40 bits. That turned a secret that was supposed to be unguessable into something guessable. Galaxy has now mapped over 1,700 Bitcoin drained from over 8,000 wallets, worth well over $100 million, and identified at least 15 separate attackers. The draining wave seemed to have stopped after 6th of August. But here is the new part. Galaxy also assessed with high confidence that at least some of the attackers relied on AI models without built-in cybersecurity restrictions and named the recently released open-source Kimi K3 model as an example. CoinKite says there is no direct evidence that AI discovered the flaw. An AI review of the firmware conducted weeks earlier apparently did not detect it, and we will probably never know for certain whether AI has been used. But even as an assessment, it changes the game. For years, the debate about censored versus uncensored models was mostly philosophical. Should AI refuse certain requests? Where is exactly the line? And this incident gives the question a body count. If unrestricted models really lower the cost of finding and exploiting a vulnerability like this, then every piece of Bitcoin infrastructure now has to assume an AI-powered adversary on the other side. And it cuts both ways. In the same weeks, an AI audit of the broader Bitcoin ecosystem surfaced more than 85 critical bugs across wallets, libraries, and infrastructure code. The same class of tool that may have powered the attack is now the most tireless red team we've ever had. And then on the 3rd of August, the same force knocked out a different part of the stack. Boltz runs non-custodial atomic swaps between Bitcoin's main chain, the Lightning Network, and Liquid. If you've ever moved Bitcoin between layers without trusting a custodian, there's a fair chance a Boltz-style swap was involved. Aqua, Bull Bitcoin, Zeus, they all use it. Boltz suspended all swap services indefinitely, not because funds were stolen, but because months of AI-assisted attacks on its infrastructure were being generated and iterated faster than a small team could patch them. User funds stayed safe and refunds started processing, but a lot of wallets suddenly lost swap access. So read it again. A small open source team running on the rails of Bitcoin that you depend on was forced offline by the speed of automated attacks, not because of a regulation change, but through a new baseline. I do not say this to scare anyone. I say this is what the AI era looks like for the Bitcoin infrastructure. The attacker's cost of iteration is collapsing towards zero. Defense has to change with it. At Blockrise, we think about this constantly. Assume that the other side has better tools than you. Independent implementations, red teaming with the same AI attackers use, verifiable processes, not just verifiable claims, and humans in the loop for judgment because AI finds patterns, but it does not take responsibility. That is the first front. The second one is not about Bitcoin's code. It's about the money around it. AI is the most deflationary technology since industrialization. Cheaper code, cheaper labor, cheaper goods. That's the promise. But here's the catch. Jeroen Blokland, the Dutch macro investor behind the great rebalancing thesis, has been pointing at this for years. When technology pushes prices down, but governments carry record debt and need inflation to grow out of it, the state does not accept deflation. Instead, it will print. Central banks offset the deflationary wave with a monetary one. And if he's right, the next decade will look like this. Real productivity rises, consumer prices want to fall, and the money supply expands anyway to prevent that. The result is not higher prices for milk. It is the revaluation of scarce assets such as gold and Bitcoin. Let's zoom out for a moment. On one front, AI attacks infrastructure, faster exploits, tireless probing, and the end of slow defense. And on the other, AI undermines the monetary system Bitcoin was built to escape by forcing the printing that debases it. And in the middle sits the one thing that does not move, the protocol, 21 million. Rules that are mathematics, not a model output. Nobody can prompt the supply schedule. Nobody can jailbreak a block height. And I find that genuinely relieving. The tools around Bitcoin are getting faster and better, while the thing itself stays exactly what it is. What I'm watching over the next 2 weeks. First, Boltz published a statement that they have been acquired. I'm very curious who's behind the acquisition. And second, whether the uncensored model debate moves from philosophy to policy. Model providers, regulators, and the Bitcoin community will have to decide what offensive capability looks like when everyone has it. How that lands will shape every defender's playbook, including ours. This is not financial advice, it's my perspective on what's happening based on 13 years in Bitcoin. Do your own research and do not forget to subscribe. See you in 2 weeks and verify your Bitcoin.